Broadcast is live.
We're good to go. Welcome.
All right.
Dave, I'm excited to yet another session with the great Dave Dulany. I'm a little disappointed. Little inside. We've done a number of these discussions over the years, and one of the last ones we did, it was, I think, celebrating the anniversary of the release of your book, I believe, and
Yes.
there were 4 of us on the webinar, and of the 4 of us, 3 of us had beards, and you didn't. And so I mailed you a glue-on theater beard in the mail. I'm a little disappointed you're not wearing that today, but we roll with it. We adjust.
It's downstairs. My son wears it all the time, so it did not go to waste. But I was so late to this webinar that I didn't have time to put it on. But Steve, thank you, and thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, no, excited to have you here. Excited to be here. We're kind of addressing a topic that's kind of near and dear to both of our hearts, which is ABE campaigns and building ABE campaigns. So one thing I'll say is, if you've got any questions, concerns, comments, anything, go ahead and pop in the comments. If you're on LinkedIn, go ahead and pop it in the comments there, and we'll be monitoring that and addressing those as we can throughout the session. So, yeah, we'll go from there. So
super excited. I mean, Steve, this is something that we've both done in the past, working cross-departmentally and building an ABE campaign. And we call it 6 easy steps. We know it's not easy. And so, like Steve said, let's, jump in. We want to make this interactive. So any comments or questions that you have as we go through, Steve and I have both built ABE campaigns at multiple companies, and we've boiled it down to 6 easy steps, and we'll go through each one, and we want to make this as interactive and useful as possible. So excited
absolutely
to jump in.
Yeah. Well, let's just introduce myself. Steve Eror. I'm director of sales here at Chatfunnels, and we're the ones excited enough to be putting on this summit. Dave, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then I know you're going to be too humble, so I will go ahead and it'd be less humble for you after you go.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Tenbound works with SDR, BDR, etc. teams in tech companies to help them with their strategy and execution around people, processes, and their technology. And so, we work with companies either starting their SDR team or getting it back on track. And one of the things that we, bump into a lot is setting up the tech stack, and especially to support an ABE campaign. So, that's how well, initially I met you, Steve, through, you were running an SDR BDR team, mm-hmm. and you picked up a copy of the book, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Picked it up, and
which is on sale now at Amazon. It's everything you need to run an SDR team.
Yep. Honestly, it's great. It's a great great book. It's a how-to manual on SDR teams. But one of the things I think, you've got these inbound teams, right, that are dealing with hand raisers, and then you've got your outbound teams that are focused on target accounts, and then you're asked, hey, throw ABE on top of it. Let's go after these target accounts. So let's kind of look at ABE, kind of what it is, and knock it down step by step. So let's just get into it.
100%. And so I'll jump ahead. So the big 6 easy steps or key considerations as you're thinking about an ABE campaign, whether you're in marketing, in sales development, in sales, if you're thinking about stepping up and really leading this charge, you got to think about the targets. You got to think about the strategy. You got to think about the account planning, orchestration and execution, metrics, and technology stack. So we're going to lay each one of those out in detail and bring in examples of how we've done this in the past. So Steve, we want to start always, and I think anybody who's on the call realizes how critical it is when you're thinking across departmentally on how to align toward a key account strategy or an ABE strategy. You start with the target accounts and the definition of the account list, ICP, personas, and the overall game plan for your identification of the accounts.
Right,
So
right. You're beginning
there.
with the end in mind. You're beginning with
Yeah.
the end in mind. What is it that I want to go after?
Mhm.
What are the accounts that I want to go after? And so when we say the who on this first part, we're not necessarily talking about which individual people. We're talking about what accounts do you want to go for. And I listened to Dave and John's session before us. They touched on this a little bit as well. Is how do you go ahead and identify those accounts? So I think that the number one thing that you got to look at is, why are they a target? Why are you targeting this select group of accounts to go after? What is it about them? So for us, we look at a couple of things here. We're looking at like some of the basic stuff, the firmographic data, the how big is the company and the revenue, what is their current tech stack, right? But one of the things that I think that people forget is sometimes they look at your number one customers, look at the best customers that you've been able to bring on board, right? And let's try to duplicate that. That's another thing to go ahead and look at is looking at what's been working and how can we do that some more.
Exactly.
So,
and the target accounts that you start out with, it could be a hypothesis at the time. If you're just starting out and putting together your account-based program, you have to start somewhere. So look at accounts that have purchased in the past and have potential to be the biggest bang for the buck, basically. And especially if we're thinking about going outbound, you only have a certain amount of time in the day. And you want to be able to really think about and spend your time in the best possible way and not waste any time. And that one of the big, hiccups in thinking about account-based is not thinking deeply about your ideal customer profile, and then not really pinpointing the people at those companies that should be your ultimate buying persona. And and making sure that you really nail that down before you move on to the next step.
well, not just the buying persona, but because very rarely with a lot of our companies are we selling to a persona. Usually at this point we're selling to an entire committee, right?
Yeah.
Right. And like was touched on before, it's a much larger committee than that we've ever seen before, right? It's a lot bigger. So who is your buying committee, and why do they care? I think that's the thing, is put yourself in their shoes and ask, why do they care? One thing I like to do is break down who is it that you go after. So what are the different levels that you're going after? So for example, we want to speak to members of the C-suite. We want to speak to VPs and directors. That's mostly who we want to talk to when we're building out a campaign. And for us, so that's title level. And then you look at title function. So sales and sales, operations, and demand gen. And you make a matrix where these cross-reference. What you're going to find is a couple of things. One, the marketers are going to care about more or less the same thing regardless of their level. The operations people, they're going to care about the same thing. And the sales people, they're going to care about the same thing. So those functions are going to care about the same things. Now, to what level and how they care about those things, that's going to differentiate. So if you do that matrix of title level, title function, it's really easy for you to kind of like build that out and say, okay, this is what the messaging on the different levels and the different functions is going to be. So you can go ahead and you can target that. Right.
Exactly. So now, you've identified your ideal account profile and you've got that down. You've got 3 to however many people within the company that you want to talk to. And then to your point, in the messaging matrix, the C-suite, the VP level, or the director are all going to have different viewpoints on trying to solve the problem. Now you can come up with your messaging that
Right.
appeals to that particular buyer in your content and the offers that you're putting out there.
Oh, absolutely. I remember we were at a company that I was selling IT software, and that's what my SDRs are going after. And some of the software we sold, we sold to IT leaders and HR leaders. Same software, they both needed to buy in, and that's two groups that generally they don't talk a lot. And so part of what we were looking for in terms of the offers and the content and what we're going to build out was how do we get these groups together so we can have a call together. What we ended up doing, we got some really high-end coffee. We got some nice mugs. To one group, we sent the mugs. To the other group, we sent the coffee. And so they had to talk to each other to get the other half of what they were getting. And our message was, hey, listen, let's the three of us get together. Let's have a virtual coffee on us, and let's sit and talk. And it was a really great way to one, kind of brighten their day a little bit, but two, and most importantly, bring the right people together to have that conversation. So
yeah, exactly. And when you think about it, you've put the time in to identify those ideal accounts, and you've put the time in to identify the people that you should be talking to. And so the ROI on creating offers like that and spending the time to work on the messaging that really appeals is much higher versus a sort of a scattershot approach that most companies take. So
right. And the other thing is, make sure that offer, I mean, the one thing I want to add is make sure that offer is driving your message, right? And it's supporting what you're trying to do, and that you don't change your message and what you're trying to do because you've come up with something clever that you want to go ahead and send out or put in an email or something like that. I got a yoga mat one time that said "Namaste" ahead of the competition, and I looked at it and I was like, I don't do yoga. I don't know what to do with this. All right. And I think it's actually like under a TV or something at this point. It's something. The dogs might use it. I don't know. But it didn't have much to do with me or what I did in my role or the software. It was really like hey, here's a pun. Let's do something around that. So make sure whatever you're doing, it's driving that message and what you're ultimately trying to get over to the customer.
Yeah, exactly. You could see that there could be a lot of waste involved in wasted time, money, effort, etc. if you're not really coordinated. And that brings us into the next level of planning the AB campaign is your strategy. So developing a strategy at a high level before you start to align the organization around that target account list. So
I think that's
where
so
do we
key.
start there?
Yeah, and that's so key is that organizational alignment, right?
Yeah.
Where the sales teams bought in on the list that we're going after. The SDRs, they know their role. The marketing team, they know what they need to do. That everybody's aligned and they're all on the same page. John Miller said in the last session that he likes the AEs to be the quarterback on that, and I absolutely agree. But everybody's got to have a role. You could be Tom Brady, but if you don't have, someone to throw the ball to, you're not going to do very well. So you got to have all those roles, everybody on the same page, doing their job on that, from the top on down. So
aligned around those accounts. And the other thing is when you think about effort, there's effort going into creating the data as well. In that. You want to have the best possible data in the database around the accounts, and then data on the people. You need at least their name, email, phone number, and ensuring that the different demand generation programs and events like this are feeding into the database to support the account-based strategy. And so that's another really key point on making sure that you're aligned around harnessing the energy that's already happening right now.
Yeah, and it's important that you have the process around the data. Where is it going to come from? What are the rules around it? That you verify it. Sometimes we've had SDRs when we're sending out a high value item to the C-suite that we want to make sure the SDRs call ahead and say, hey, listen. And it was part of our campaign was, hey, Mr. Chief Revenue Officer, we've got a package on its way for you. We just want to confirm your address. And it actually was just that touch point. We let them know who we were, and then it actually played right into our hands a little bit later, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and your AEs and your SDRs are highly compensated individuals, and if they're spending the whole day pulling names and doing data entry and trying to find contact information, that's really not a great use of their time. In that, if it's a coordinated strategy, then the best case scenario is either they pop open the database and all the information's in there and they know exactly what they need to do in order to run the play, or better yet, an inbound lead comes in from your key account list and it gets right in front of an SDR or an AE, then it's coordinated with the overall strategy.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. You need all sorts of whistles and bells and flags and alerts to go off to let them know, hey, listen, here's this target account that you've done so much work on to get their attention. Now they're paying attention to you. Don't let that opportunity drop.
100%. And, pull it in, pull the overall strategy campaign into a playbook. And it doesn't have to be, when you think of a playbook, you think of this huge thing, big binder. It could just be a brief of our different account plays that we're going to have based on this, campaign that we're running right now. And so everybody is on the same page and they know where they fit into the overall strategy and what's expected. And they have those resources right there in your account playbook.
Yep. Well, so you've got the infrastructure, you've got the scaffolding, if you will. Now it's time to put some meat on the bones and build it out. So it's number 3, which is the account planning, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna, assign account teams against the target accounts. We're going to come up with those dream accounts. One of the things that we want to make sure is there's this tendency you go to, a sales rep and they say, who's your target account? Well, everything in my territory is a target account. Well, I get that, you want to sell to the entire world, but what are those 20 accounts, those high value accounts, and tier them out. But what are those real top tier accounts that you want to go ahead and go after?
Yeah.
And let's start to get the information on those. So really, I focus on those ones that would really move the needle for you.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it comes down to that prioritization and making sure that you're leveraging the time and the investments that have already taken place. And so if you're spending your time, you want to make sure that you're going to get the biggest bang for the buck. And so from a sales perspective, it makes perfect sense. But how do we coordinate the rest of the team around that to make sure that we're super prioritized and going after those dream 20? And then at the same time, in the periphery, there's inbound leads coming in that they may or may not be on the dream 20 list, but they fit into your overall account ICP. And there's a different set of plays for handling those to make sure that they're taken care of. But when you're thinking about that dream 20, it's like, okay, what are we going to do as far as account-based advertising and research and the planning to to break into those accounts, and how do we leverage the SDR team to help with that, and making sure that those are identified and then they're in the playbook, and we're gonna run those for the next 90 days.
But I think going into the kind of the next thing, right, which we talked about,
Yeah.
orchestration, I think this right here is one of the linchpins that we forget about a lot of the time, which is you need to have one person or a role or a team, or there needs to be a group that is playing conductor to the entire orchestra, that's saying, okay, I'm gonna take this as a project, almost like a project manager, and I'm gonna go ahead and drive this. And okay, SDRs ready, go. Okay, SDRs are ready. Okay, marketing, go. Okay, AEs, AKEs, go. And do your thing and follow up and make sure they're doing what they should be doing. If you don't, I think you devolve into what I call RAM. It's an acronym for Random Acts of Marketing. And it just becomes random stuff and random calls. And all of a sudden people are getting yoga mats sent to their office, and with no follow-up or nothing past that. You need to make sure that you've got someone that's conducting and driving this.
100%. And it's almost like, this should be do not pass go, do not collect $200 or whatever in the whole ABM program, because this is where execution happens. And it comes down to overall project management and driving the execution of the strategy. And this is something that a lot of companies miss. And if you think about it, everyone has different goals and different objectives, and they're reporting to different bosses, and they've got different KPIs. And it might not necessarily build up to the overall strategy of your account-based plan. And so, as you mentioned, Steve, it's like there's a lot of dissipated energy and light, and it may even devolve, depending on the size of the company, into politics and finger pointing, because there's a dotted line. You're asking other departments to do things that you're not necessarily their boss. So, in a perfect world, the senior executive, whether it's over marketing or sales, would really appoint that project manager for the overall success or failure of the campaign, and give them the ability to, drive the project forward.
I would say, even in a non-perfect world, what this person should do is go around to the various leaders, the leader of the sales team, the leader of the SDR team, the leader of the marketing team, operations, whatever groups are involved, and say, hey, listen, I'm running this ABM campaign. We're going to be driving. This is the goal we're going for. This is what I think we can get to. I need your buy-in and your blessing for me to leverage your team to do this. This is what I need them to do. And once you get that sign off, then you're working on behalf of them yourself. It's the offensive coordinator going and talking to the offense and saying, hey, this is what I need to do. I've already got the head coach's buy off. Now you need to go ahead and do it. And holding them accountable. Can you tell I'm ready for football? I am like, it's like the third football analogy I've got. I'm watching preseason games. I'm ready for it. So really need to make sure you get that buy off, because now you can hold people accountable, and then you can also celebrate wins all together as well. So it's not 100%. It's not just the crack in the whip. It's also, hey, there should be that celebrating wins cross functionality as well. Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, the sports analogies are, apt for this, because it really is. It's coordinating cross-functional teams to deliver results. And if you try to skip to just calling meetings and push something through, and you don't kind of think about how the communication plan flows through the organization, and getting buy-off from people above your pay grade to do this, then it can easily fail and just sort of spin out. So 100%, you've got to look at it. And, nobody wants to talk about project management, because no offense if there's any project management, professionals, but it's got to be one of the most boring topics in business today. But it's absolutely critical to getting this right. And being a great project manager is what it really takes to run a great ABE program.
Yeah, yeah, and I think one of the ways you do it well is you sit there and you say, okay, what are the metrics we need to hit? So that leads right into point 5, which is what are the different metrics we're going to get? And it's not just closed revenue. That's the end goal, but you have to have those checkpoints along the way that say, okay, this is the number of accounts. Okay, this is the number of contacts at each account, all the way through. This is the number of follow-up phone calls we're going to have and email phone calls. This is the number of opportunities and demos that we're going to get. This is the pipeline that we expect to get. And this is the revenue that we expect to close. And that project manager, let's just call him the conductor, so we don't have to think about project managers. But that project manager, they're going to hold everybody accountable to those metrics. And I think you agree on those metrics. Hey, this is what we think we can do before you ever start, right? And I think you hold everybody accountable. And so part of what you want to do is A/B test. Let's iterate. Let's see, is this working? If it's not working, don't ride that stock all the way into the ground. Like let's readjust, right? I'm sorry, Blockbuster isn't coming back no matter how long you hold on to your Blockbuster stock. You need to do something else, and so you need to adjust. On the other hand, if it's taking off, if it's blowing up, like that's when you need to say as project manager, hey, this is going well. Give me more accounts. Let's do more. Let's do this more. So
let's double down. Yep. Well put. And this is the classic outbound funnel, and you set up the metrics right from the beginning as the overall conductor in accounts, people, conversion to conversations, conversion to sales appointments, pipeline, and sales, classic funnel. And the key is, you have to start somewhere. So you start with the overall metrics of the program, and being that conductor and that project manager and looking for the break points in the data that will give you the information that you need to start to iterate. So as you mentioned, Steve, if you start to really monitor it and you understand, okay, we have enough accounts, we have enough people, but we're not doing enough activity to engage the people, and thus the conversion rates are low. Okay, now we can go and have a data-driven, informed conversation with the team to say we need to up our activity. And all the traditional funnel conversion rate metrics that we're all used to here, but you got to start somewhere. So right at the beginning.
Yep, exactly. And it's everything from making sure that the territories are covered appropriately to making sure your BDRs know how many phone calls they've got to make. I think that leads in kind of the next point and kind of step 6, which is the tools and technology. And I think sometimes people want to put this first. They want to focus on this and what we're sending out first. I think this is all very important, but this needs to support the overall motion and in that direction. There are a couple of things that we as we're kind of planning this out a little bit, a couple different areas that we want to address. One of the ones, and I'll let you take this one if you want, but data automation.
Yeah, I mean, so data is the lifeblood of this whole thing. It's almost oxygen for the campaign. So if you think about data, you've got to have the accounts, information. You have to have the people that you're targeting in your outbound campaign, and you've got to have good contact information to be able to get in touch with them. You also, there's a lot of spam filters, and even on the phone now, you get a spam message if the number's been overused. So you got to make sure that your data's in there, it's clean, it's organized, it's prioritized. And you also need to think about, if an inbound lead does come in, do we have a mechanism for it to be identified and put in front of the right person to make sure that it's synchronized with the overall ABE campaign? So data is number one.
Number 2 would be account-based advertising, right? So I would say that's not even a webinar all on its own. That's an entire summit all on its own. I've worked with people, that's exactly what they specialize in. I worked with a guy one time. They can do some really cool things with this at a conference that we were at. They targeted ads on LinkedIn to people who were physically in the conference hall, saying, "Hey, come see us at booth this number." So there's some really amazing things they can do there. And so if you can personalize based off that, also personalize based off of the part of their part of this overall campaign, specialize that message. The other one is a sales communication and cadence tool, right? I kind of talk about, the big ones: SalesLoft, Outreach, Groove. There's a bunch of others, but a way to organize the messaging, right? And that does a couple of things, at least in my opinion. It puts up guardrails for your team so they don't go off script, because you can say, "Hey, this is the touch points I want you to go off of," but also it keeps them on message. It gets them focused on, this is what I need to do. But I think the part that at least BDRs get most excited about is they don't have to think about the next step. Yeah. You're able to, as when you're building this out, you're able to determine, hey, this is the cadence that I want. This many phone calls, this many emails, this many LinkedIn outreaches, text message, whatever. You build that out so they don't have to worry about checking in. They're able to just, next task, and it makes it a lot more efficient. More action, less thinking there.
100%.
So,
yep. And if you think about it, you've put in so much work at the upfront to get the list together and to get the data in there. It's nice and clean. Now you're running ads specifically to the account list, and you're trying to, get somebody to pay attention to what you're doing. You're making outbound calls to the list, and finally somebody comes in and they're interested. They want to talk to you. You got to make sure that you get that into that cadence or the sequence, and the SDR, BDR knows, okay, I need to call this person. I need to email them, make sure that we get them in front of a salesperson. So
yeah,
that's where that really comes in.
Yeah. ABM Management. That's a lot of monitoring and making sure that everything is coordinated and going well. There's some really great tools out there for that. One that I feel near and dear to my heart is account intelligence, right? Yeah. You need to know that these targeted accounts that you're going after are hitting your site, right? And you need to know that your reps need to know that they're there so they can engage as quickly as possible. That's quite honestly, that's what we do at Chatfunnels. So I'm a little bit passionate about it. But the chat gives you another channel to be aware that they're there. So, hey, listen, if they're on the site, talk to them right now. And if you know that that's your targeted company, you get an alert on your phone that says, hey, listen, your targeted company's on the website. Great, let's go ahead and chat with them. But also, what a tool like Chatfunnels might do is say, okay, who else is part of the buying committee? What other data can I augment for you? And we go out and we go ahead and get that and put that back into CRM so that you can continue to reach out there. The big point is this, is you need to go ahead and segment those visitors off on your website so you can provide a unique experience for those visitors that are part of the ABM campaign, right? And, that's what we do all day long.
100%. And just a quick comment. I mean, your competitors out there, and the biggest competitor in all these outbound or inbound campaigns is just attention of people, and
absolutely
the millions of different things that they could be doing. And so if one of your top rated A accounts is on your website and they're asking for information, or they're going through a contact process, you have to be there. You have got to be right there. And even I'll give you a next level thing. We use Chatfunnels here, and we had a person come on who was completely anonymous, but we knew that they were from one of our top accounts. And so I just went back into the database and looked up people that I may have spoken with in the past or have come to a Tenbound conference, etc., and triangulated who that person might be. So I just shot her a quick note and said, hey, was wondering if that was you,
Yeah.
on there.
Yeah.
And now we've got a meeting set up. So,
Yeah.
just having that little extra edge is the difference between, success and failure on one of these.
Yeah. Don't wait for them to fill out a form when they're your target account. Like, let's get engaged with them like right now. So, yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Well, the next thing
lot.
to talk about is marketing automation, right? A lot of big players out there that we can talk about, but we've got some experience. I can talk about it. Talk a little bit marketing automation, what role that plays. I think most people on here will know, but it doesn't hurt to touch on it.
100%. I mean, you need to have your air cover, if you will, of the entire database, understanding that you exist and you're there and you're doing great work with your clients and demonstrating the work that you're doing to a mass audience. And so if like I said, if somebody actually is interested and they sign up for a newsletter or they sign up with something, you want to get them into a regular cadence. The marketing automation can then work with the account-based advertising platforms and your sales engagement platform to make sure that you are 100% covered. And so that's a critical step.
Absolutely.
Yep. And it goes in. Absolutely. I mean, there's so many analytics that can be run, especially to your point in making sure that the project manager has the ability to understand what's working and what's not with the ABE campaign. Whether it's Domo, Tableau, those business intelligence platforms, to really understand what's working and what's not so you can make changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that data, reviewing it on a regular basis, I would argue that especially during an ABM campaign, one thing that we need to have there is you need to have a review meeting where as a team, as the leadership team and with the point person, you get together, you review the analytics together. So we're all on the same page. So one group doesn't say, hey, this is working awesome. Excuse me. And the AEs never get any leads or, vice versa. Like let's make sure that everybody's working together and meet regularly on that. And then the last one is going to be a duh, but it's put it all back into CRM, whatever that is, HubSpot, Salesforce, Sugar CRM, whatever it is, put it back in the CRM and have that be kind of your single source, absolute truth. So you're all tracking it right there. So it all ties back. I mean, we talked about that marketing automation, Marketo, all those are super powerful tools. We're barely just scratching the surface of what they can do, but put it all into one place so everybody can go ahead and act on it.
100%. So. It really focuses the team on what's the most important thing for the business.
Yeah.
Which is we've got to have pipeline and we've got to have revenue. And everything else goes into that. So nobody can come in and say, I think people are moving away from like vanity metrics and things that don't really move the needle.
I hope so.
At least the people that are on this call,
Yeah.
But the real takeaway is now is a great time to step up and lead, because what you're describing here with these campaigns is really the future of our industry and how we can really make a difference. So, if you can become that project manager and really lead, no matter what your title is, or which of the departments that you come from, you can make a huge difference in your career and the success of the company. And that's what we need right now, in this.
One of the things we didn't do on purpose is say what organization that conductor's from, because it could be the BDR leader, it could be somebody in marketing, it could be someone in sales. Whatever that is, you need to own it, and it's going to be a lot of work. But I mean, if you pull off all it takes is one really good campaign. Just do a Google search for some of the great ABE, ABM campaigns out there and what they've been able to achieve. You pull this off, this is career changing, company changing, for you and for your customers. So
big time. Yeah. I mean, and when you look at it from the outside, There's certain people, we call it, they've got the juice. They're the people at organizations that can work cross departmentally. They've got a lot of executive support. They can get things done, at a company. And if you can be the person who's got the juice, you're not just sort of a bit player, kind of phoning it in and collecting a paycheck. You can write your own ticket, really. I mean, the sky's the limit. But like Steve, you mentioned, we've said it about 100 times. It's not easy to do. It's hard, but the rewards are tremendous for running one of these.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I wish everybody luck in running your ABE campaigns. If you do have questions for us, pop in the chat. My team's on there. We're all ready to talk to you. I'm ready to talk to you. So as soon as we're done here, I'm going to go over to my desk and hop on. We've been flooded with people asking questions. But this has been a great summit so far. I'm excited to see where it goes. David, it is great to do this with you again. I'm looking forward to doing it with you again sometime. And maybe I'll send you a better beard this time that you can have on there. So,
well, I'll be in the conference here when we jump off. So I'll try to go down and find it, and maybe we can actually get a picture of it.
There we go. Looking forward to it. Hey,
yeah, I hope this was helpful for everybody. Definitely reach out and connect with us to
where can they
the conversation.
Where can they find you, David?
Yeah, just best is tenbound.com, tenbound.com. Jump on the newsletter, and we've got a lot of events just like this coming up. So it's gonna be great.
Absolutely. I think you've got an in-person event coming up, and then so that's exciting.
100%.
Reach out to me on I'm all over LinkedIn. I'm on there a lot. So and with that, we'll leave you. Thank you very much, and good luck with all your ABE efforts.